Hi, I'm Paul Ting and I'm the Managing Director of FEDIA, which is a digital agency in Australia. And I'm at the Portland State University Digital Marketing Conference. To me, a lot of our clients ask us about social media and about what tools that they should use to maximise their opportunities online and how they can increase revenues and profits. I like to bring it back to basics and look at it from a human level and people's ability to build relationships, people's ability to communicate, and I suppose foster what they have around them, their environment around them. So when you meet people that are poor at building relationships, they're poor at networking, poor at holding conversation, but they're wondering why the social media campaign's not working too well. You know, they're always turning to and blaming the tools, when in actual fact I think there's more work required on building their communication skill set. So when we advise people on what tools to work with, it's about trying to find the tools that work best with their existing skill set and what they feel comfortable growing with. So for instance, if they have a large personal friendship base and they are able to reach out and extend their network to Facebook, that seems like a logical place to start rather than trying to launch into something new and move into an area that they're not comfortable with. So I suppose the tool set that we want to use and what we want to recommend is what people would complement their skill set, their natural communication skill set. Look, definitely the mobile space is something that's really taking off. I think one of the fundamental differences, let's look at location-based services. So, you know, Foursquare, Facebook Places, Yelp, that type of stuff. In recent countries that I visited, so let's just say Australia, Singapore and the United States, Singapore have their own versions of location-based services. Now, when you look at the infrastructure of Singapore, it's a very vertical economy. So it's very, very tight. It's very, very, the lifestyle of Singapore is very much, you know, you live in a small apartment and you exist outside your house. When you look at Australia, it's very, very sort of spread out. And as a result, you have people that live in large houses, spread out over large distances. They've often got to drive a lot, and the home is where you spend your time. The United States is a little bit of a combination of the two, depending on which cities that you visit. And each of the countries use different location-based services depending on the type of what works best for that type of country. So in Australia, we don't really use Yelp. Yelp's not actually available for Australia. In Singapore, they use a different one called Around Me, and here in America, you know, Yelp, we've obviously noticed is the predominant one. I guess the big difference when you're trying to look at what the critical mass point of a lot of these applications is going to be the user uptake. Now, let's say you walk downtown New York City, and your user acquisition for something like Yelp is going to be quite high because the density of businesses is going to be quite great in one city block. In Australia, you might have 3 businesses in that same size city block. And so the type of location service that we use, how we use them, the way that we use them is naturally going to be different. So what we tend to find is that Yelp is very much about accommodating into the lifestyle of, you know, particularly in the bigger urban areas of what's open now, what's around me, what can we do. It's very similar in Singapore, whereas Australia is more about a general reviews type thing. It's more like a, hey, we went there once and it was great, you should come back again. That's probably the biggest difference that I've noticed. I suppose with community-based messaging, you know, I was reading an interesting statistic talking about the fact that Australian uptake on social media is one of the highest in the world, but it also is supported by the highest amount of abandonment. I think that might be a bit of a reflection on Australians in that they're quite innovative, but they seem to give up. Now, I think when you look at again with the community type thing, American businesses are very much more behind social media concepts as opposed to the Australian businesses. But largely, I think, again, it's just, I mean, you're talking 350 million people versus 30 million people in the same land size space. And so when that one business on that city corner in New York can talk to potentially, you know, 50,000 people in a very condensed area, in Australia you might be talking to 500 people. So the emphasis on community messaging and the importance of it in a marketing campaign in Australia tends to be a little bit less because effectively the reach is going to be less. We've identified that a lot of our clients have come to us, and you know, traditionally when we started our agency, they came to us in a service capacity. So they didn't really know what they needed. They went to a professional service who was going to figure it all out for them. They're going to pay a whole lot of money, and we were going to build it, and we were going to do all the hard work, and then they were going to use it. Since infrastructure as a service, software as a service, mobile applications, cloud computing, that sort of stuff's taken off, the attitude towards our industry now is more product oriented and more based around communities. So the way that we've changed our business model is that when clients come to us, we tend to view what they're wanting to build as a product rather than as a service. How this has changed the relationship is, once upon a time you had, the client come in and you had the agency, and you'd often butt heads, and it's because there was this money transaction and contracts down the middle, and they needed this and we needed that. What we found now since moving down the product route, we effectively act as product managers for that company. They often come and work in our agency with us, so they actually become a part of our team, and we coach them to become effective community managers. So we're trying to reposition the way that people view our industry, particularly in our country, and look at moving away from service type thinking and more into product type thinking, and realizing that when they build these new services to leverage their user bases, that it actually is often involved around a product and a community that ultimately will use that product and how that needs to be managed.